Hello and welcome to the Indiana Lawyer Podcast, your source for news in Hoosier law, brought to you by Taft. I'm Alexa Shrake, Indiana Lawyer Reporter, and your host this week. As always, I'm here in our Monument Circle studio with Managing Editor Daniel Carson and reporter Maura Johnson to give you the rundown on the latest legal news. Plus, I chat with Lauren Rodriguez about her departure from the city of Indianapolis to her new role as president and CEO of RDOOR Housing. So, let's get started. Today is Wednesday, May 29th, 2024, and these are your headlines. To start, Daniel, you have news from a recent 7th Circuit Court of Appeals case. What can you tell us?
An Evansville police officer did not violate a man's Fourth Amendment rights and was entitled to qualified immunity after a physical confrontation resulted in the man being knocked unconscious, the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled. The appellate court reversed a U.S. Southern District Court opinion that denied Evansville Police Department Sergeant Sam Smith's motion for summary judgment, which was filed after Charles Brummett sued Smith in the city of Evansville and claimed his Fourth Amendment rights had been violated. The case stemmed from a physical altercation between Smith and Brummett, with much of the incident captured on video by Smith's body-worn camera. Their encounter quickly turned physical. Court records stated Brummett swung his arm at Smith, and his open hand hit Smith's face in a roundhouse swing. Smith then grabbed Brummett's shirt and punched him in the face 4 times. Brummett lost consciousness and lay still for several minutes. He suffered an acute fracture of his eye socket, a broken nose, and lacerations that later required surgery. Brummett later pleaded guilty to misdemeanor battery and public intoxication. In his summary judgment motion to the district court, Smith had argued that his force was reasonable and he was entitled to qualified immunity because precedent did not put him on clear notice that his actions were unconstitutional. In denying Smith's motion, the district court concluded it could not determine whether Smith was entitled to immunity. The 7th Circuit, in its opinion, agreed with Smith that Brummett had not met his burden of showing Smith violated a clearly established right. The court remanded the case with instructions to enter judgment in Smith's favor on the Fourth Amendment claim.
Thanks, Daniel. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita is seeking to recover nearly $4.5 million in public money that former Clark County Sheriff Jamey Noel and members of his family are accused of using to pay for everything from designer clothes to college tuition to a small airplane. Rokita's office filed a lawsuit in Clark Circuit Court that seeks to claw back money that authorities say was taken over the past 5 years from the Utica Township Volunteer Firefighter Association, also known as New Chapel EMS. The civil suit stems from a criminal case in which Noel is facing 25 felony charges of corrupt business influence, theft, obstruction of justice, ghost employment, official misconduct, and tax evasion. Noel's wife, Misty, has also been charged with 10 felonies of theft and tax evasion. One of Noel's daughters, Casey Noel, has been charged with 9 felonies of theft and tax evasion. While Noel's 2 other daughters are listed as defendants in Rokita's lawsuit, they have not been charged with any crimes. The police investigation is ongoing. In a separate civil suit, Rokita is seeking to recover over $900,000 that Noel is accused of misappropriating from the Clark County Jail Commissionary Fund while he was sheriff. Both lawsuits seek damages amounting to triple the value of the public money that is alleged to have been stolen. Rokita is also seeking a restraining order to prevent Noel from selling any property. Sticking with the Southern Indiana, Maura, you have news about the federal prison in Terre Haute.
An inmate at the Terre Haute Federal Prison Complex has been charged in the fatal stabbing of another prisoner in April of last year. A grand jury indicted 42-year-old Otha Don Watkins III of Illinois with possessing contraband in prison and involuntary manslaughter in the death of Carlos Shelton. According to court documents, Watkins stabbed Shelton with a shank during a fight on April 14, 2023. Shelton later died from his injuries. Watkins reportedly made the shank with a sharpened piece of metal on one end and wrapped in white cloth on the other. These knives are illegal in prison. Watkins is currently in the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. If convicted, Watkins could spend an additional 8 years in federal prison on top of the federal sentence he's currently serving. In 2018, Watkins was sentenced to 23 years in prison for assisting in a 2014 attempted armed robbery of the First National Bank in Cairo, Illinois. That 23-year sentence is being served consecutively with a 12-year sentence for an armed robbery at a McDonald's in Missouri in October 2014.
Thanks, Maura. Moving to central Indiana, a little over a year after his exoneration, Leon Benson is now suing the city of Indianapolis and 5 police officers alleging that they framed him for murder. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Indiana. Benson spent 25 years at the Correctional Industrial Facility in Pendleton for the 1998 murder of Casey Shane. His 61-year sentence ended after a California legal team talked with Alan Jones, who was the lead detective on the case. Jones provided his case file to the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, but Benson's lawyers noticed there were discrepancies between the handwritten notes and interview transcripts. Jones's admission that he didn't always provide all of his handwritten records was the key to Benson's exoneration, and he walked out of prison a free man. Shane's sister, Colleen Bunch, joins Benson in the lawsuit, and the complaint alleges the officers withheld information that led to a different suspect. The lawsuit alleges malicious prosecution, fabricating and manipulating evidence, a denial of due process, and a failure by police superiors to prevent misconduct. The lawsuit seeks compensatory damages, attorney fees, as well as punitive damages. A jury trial has been requested. Traveling north, Daniel, what can you tell us about a Madison Circuit judge?
A Madison Circuit Court judge's repeated poor management practices, including missing entries and orders that led to the dismissal of 16 criminal cases, has drawn him a scathing rebuke and lengthy suspension from the state's highest court. The Indiana Supreme Court suspended Judge Scott Norick 45 days without pay after an Indiana Commission on Judicial Qualifications investigation uncovered dozens of examples of judicial misconduct committed over a period of more than 2 years. Norick's suspension begins June 3rd and ends July 18th. In its opinion, the High Court noted that Norick engaged in judicial misconduct by failing to supervise his staff in the processing of orders, which resulted in him presiding over civil cases in which he or his son were the attorneys of record, erroneously issuing an ex parte change of custody order without giving the opposing party notice or an opportunity to respond, and failing to supervise his staff in the processing of criminal cases, which led to delays in issuing warrants, missing orders, and chronological case summary entries, and involuntarily dismissing 16 criminal cases. Norick was elected judge of the Madison Circuit Court 5 in November 2020 and took office on January 1st, 2021. The state's high court said the misconduct began the day Norick took office and continued through at least March 31st, 2023. Missing entries and orders from Norick led to the dismissal of 16 cases because the defendants were not timely tried under Criminal Rule 4C, the state's high court said. The commission identified at least 7 cases in which there was a significant delay in issuing a warrant, with delays ranging from 30 days to 16 months. These delays all involved level 6 felonies, including charges of battery against a public safety official, domestic battery, strangulation, auto theft, neglect of a dependent, possession of methamphetamine, and residential entry. The Supreme Court's opinion pointed out that suspensions longer than 30 days, quote, reflect extremely serious judicial misconduct, just shy of what might warrant removal from office, end quote. Now, over to Maura with news about the Delphi murder case.
The ongoing legal proceedings for Richard Allen, the man accused of murdering 2 teenage girls in Delphi in February 2017, has hit another roadblock with the cancellation of 3 days of hearings after Allen's defense team filed a second verified motion to disqualify the special judge in the case, Francis Gull. The motion, filed on May 17th, claims Judge Gull should be dismissed from the case due to her bias against the defense team, who claim Gull treats the prosecution more favorably, prioritizing their motions over the defense's. They also cite a comment made by Gull last summer on a social media post about a softball tournament at the Abby and Libby Memorial Park. Judge Gull wrote congratulations on the post. The defense said that though the comment was, quote, seemingly innocuous, Her choice to comment on a post about an event honoring the victims of a crime she is presiding over is inappropriate. Back in January, the defense team filed their first motion to have Judge Gull removed, claiming bias and that Gull makes disparaging comments about the defense counsel in open court and in orders issued by the court. The hearings, set for May 21st through 23rd, were set to discuss several filings by both the prosecution and defense, including the prosecution's request that the defense should not be allowed to use words like cult or Odinism in front of the jury. As of the recording of this episode, no new hearing date has been announced. Allen is set to go to trial in October in Carroll County. Judge Gull denied our request for comment, saying she is not ethically permitted to comment on pending litigation. We'll continue to keep an eye on changes in the case.
Thanks, Maura. The Indiana GOP convention deadline to register has passed, leaving Todd Rokita as the sole candidate for Attorney General vying for delegate votes. The Republican Attorney General officially filed for the convention in April. He's held the office since 2021. Although Madison County Prosecutor Rodney Cummings previously sent a letter to county party officials about his potential interest in the Attorney General position, he did not file by the party's deadline, according to the Indiana Capitol Chronicle. Hoosier state delegates for both Republican and Democratic parties are responsible for deciding the Attorney General nominee for the party rather than the primary election voters. The convention is scheduled for June 15th. The Democratic Party convention will be on July 13th, where Destiny Wells and Beth White will be campaigning for delegates' votes. And finally, to wrap up this week's headlines, Daniel, tell us about what you're working on for our next print issue.
Bankruptcy filings, both nationally and within the Indiana Southern District, have risen substantially for business and non-business filings since last year. My story will look at what's driving these increases and what Indiana bankruptcy attorneys think the filing trends will look like for the remainder of the year. You can read all about it in Indiana Lawyer's June 5th issue.
Okay, that'll do for this week's headlines. As always, if you want more legal news, check us out at theindianalawyer.com. Stick around after our sponsor break to hear my interview with Lauren Rodriguez.
Taft, today's modern law firm. At Taft, we cultivate a highly respectful, transparent workplace that fosters creativity, teamwork, inclusion, and diversity. We couple our culture with a client-first approach, rewarding lawyers who understand their clients' goals and work to deliver success. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
So I have with me today Lauren Rodriguez, incoming president and CEO of RDOOR Housing. Previously, Lauren served as the deputy mayor of public health and safety for the city of Indianapolis. So to start, Lauren, you earned your JD from St. Louis University School of Law in 2016 with a focus on healthcare law. So what kind of led you to that practice area?
So I started going to college to be a doctor, and quickly realized organic chemistry and I did not get along. And so we switched paths my senior year, and my aunt told me about health law because I had a whole background. I still graduated with applied health science and minors in biology and psychology. And so she told me about health law and I was like, sure, why not? It's kind of the same. And then senior year, I applied to only the top 10 health law schools in the nation. And so that's how I got to health law. It's not very interesting. It kind of aligned with what I was already doing. And I wanted to be a doctor because of my dad's disability and trying to figure out how to help him.
So, kind of tell us, why this change going from, being the deputy mayor of public health and safety to becoming, president and CEO of RDOOR Housing.
So what I loved about working for the mayor and in the mayor's office was that I got to do so many things that touched public health and safety. And I would tell you that's everything in our lives. As far as that work environment was amazing, and I learned so much. So I started my career as a public defender. And one thing that I would hope any law student coming out of law school thinks about is potentially if you want to be any type of litigator, and even not even a litigator, but just somebody that I think is a little bit more compassionate, be a public defender or prosecutor, because you think on your feet, it's fast paced, and you're dealing with real people in real time. And I learned so much in that job that when I went into the private practice, I learned a lot too. My passion was more for people and not necessarily organizations and companies. So I think that my time as a PD really solidified my foundation and my purpose of what I would do with my law degree. And so when I went over to the mayor's office, I got to do the stuff that I was like hoping I could have done as a public defender. You get people at their most vulnerable moments of their lives, right? You're dealing with them while they're in custody or even outside of custody, but they're facing time, right? That's their livelihood, right? Even if they're only on probation, that still costs money. It still requires them to come and, miss work or miss childcare experiences or just, family experiences. And what I had the opportunity to do with the mayor's office was kind of like trying to figure out how to set people up for success so that they don't have to become in the criminal justice system. And if they were, then figure out how to get them out of that. What did they need? What went wrong? What could we have done better as a government for them? And it just touched so many things. Food, obviously, jobs, housing, mental health, behavioral health, all of that. And what I found is that I truly believe that housing is a foundation for that. So knowing that I couldn't have been in that job forever, I don't think that the Deputy Mayor of Public Health and Safety job is something that somebody should do for 30 years. I think that that is something that, at least me, maybe I should just say, I shouldn't have done it for 30 years. But I will say that it's something that is so fulfilling. And so knowing that when I was going to leave, what I wanted to leave for was one of the things that I had been working on. And housing was a foundational piece in my mind of, if you don't have a place, a healthy, safe, clean space to lay your head at night, how are you going to deal with anything else in life, right? Any job, where are you going to put your stuff? Where are you going to put your kids? And so you're in constant fight or flight mode when you don't have a place to lay your head at night. And so when the opportunity arose for this, I jumped on it. I was like, yes, this is something that I would be really interested in.
How do you feel like your work with the city kind of prepared you for your new role?
Relationship building. I will tell you, one of my favorite things about the mayor is that he gave me the autonomy to build the relationships that are needed to be an effective deputy mayor of public health and safety. But even prior to that, to be an effective director of his Office of Public Health and Safety. And that's internal connections, but external too, community building, making sure that I know who I need to talk to. And I'm not just saying like the big organizations, but also the community that is the one that are being the most impacted by it. So relationship building is one of the biggest ones that I think has prepared me for here. Obviously, there are things like tax credit information that I'm going to have to, really brush up on. But I think that those are like books. So you can learn those things easily. I don't think had I been somewhere else prior to this, I would have known the community that I'm trying to help serve. And if you don't know that, then you're really not going to be effective in any position that is community driven. I don't want to be the person that says, oh, this is what I think you need. I need to know who to go talk to hear what they believe that they need and how can I help them meet those requirements.
What all does RDOOR Housing do? Is it statewide or just focused in Indianapolis?
So it is statewide. We have properties mainly in Indianapolis, but we do have other properties elsewhere. And I know the goal is to always, wherever we can do affordable housing is what we want to do. It did start here in Indy, and so it has expanded, and I'm really excited. And it's focused on providing safe, affordable housing units for our community. That's the mission, that's like our drive and our passion. And we've been able to come alongside Partners in Housing and also work along those entities to help provide the services. So not only are we finding places, creating spaces for people to live that are affordable, that are clean, that are healthy, but also then following them alongside with Partners in Housing to help provide the services that they may need to continue to thrive.
What is the greatest challenge in bringing more affordable housing in Indianapolis, do you see, or statewide also?
I think money. I think that, the one thing that I'm really excited to know is that housing is a bipartisan issue. So when you think about it in the realm of government and politics, everybody's impacted by housing, regardless of where you fall in your political ideals. And everybody can come to the table and understand that it knows no color, it knows no class, it knows nothing, right? And it can impact anyone. And so I think people knowing that, people do, they want to help. And I think everybody wants to help. It's just the amount of money that goes into developing projects or fixing up projects, looking at the tax credits here, how we can utilize those, but then also make them, more than what we currently have. And so it's always keeping our finger on the pulse of how we can kind of pivot and work together and be more focused on, instead of siloing ourselves, but also like trying to figure out how we can work with other partners to create spaces, given that the amount of money it can be limiting to help with these types of projects. Because it's costly. It is a costly thing. You don't get into affordable housing to become a millionaire. And it is something that takes a lot of resources and patience. And a lot of people want to do it, and I love it, and I'm happy about it. But that just means that there's not as much money to go around.
Yeah. So what are you most looking forward to about working at RDOOR Housing?
To have a focus, just one focus. Coming from the mayor's office and my previous position, I had to do so many different types of things, and I loved it. I have become a mother, and my son is 1 year old. And so for me, I made the choice to say, I want to focus on one thing so that way I can give my all to one type of purpose, because what I was doing was so much, and I don't have boundaries. I'm really bad at boundaries. And so if I'm needed at 1 a.m., I answer the phone at 1 a.m. And I knowing that I can't create boundaries within myself because I just truly love the work, it was better for me to try to find a singular focus that I could do my job in, so that I'm not like taken in every direction. And I'm hoping that I can try to find a balance here. Again, I don't have boundaries. So if there's something that's needed, it's just what I love to do. And it's when you find something that you love, I think it's hard for me, at least, to find boundaries. So I am excited to just focus on one thing and figure out how I can really dig in deep and create sustainability and affordable housing units. And then also make sure that the people that we're serving, we're not just creating a box for them to live in, but we're creating a community and feeling as though that they feel safe and they feel heard.
All right. So lastly, tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing when you're not working?
It's a great question. What do I do when I don't work? I have my son, my partner, and I also, he has a nonprofit that I am very heavily involved in, track and field stuff with youth in Indianapolis. Specifically, he's focused on the east side, Lawrence area. But they have kids from all over Ben Davis. And so that's a lot of fun. I've learned to like track and field. I've learned how to talk about the sprints and the hurdles. And we love to go to meets and We have 2 dogs, so we do a lot with them. And really, it's just the 1-year-old. Our 1-year-old is just everywhere now. So this summer, we're looking forward to being at the pool and enjoying our family.
Alrighty, so that'll do for this week's interview. Lauren, thank you again for joining me today. To our listeners, head over to the indianalawyer.com to hear our past interviews. You can also find us on your favorite podcast apps. We'll talk to you soon.